Namaskaram. In this course titled Bhāratiya Sāra Bodhani Level 2, amongst the various subjects that we have discussed in this level of this course and the previous level, one important subject that needs to be dealt so that we as commoners can learn to appreciate is the introduction and appreciation to Indian classical music and dance. To a large extent, you can assume that music and dance are inseparable. Whether there is depiction to the music that is being deployed is one question. I can just sing, I can just dance. But when both of them go hand in hand is when the harmony of our Indian philosophical system comes into picture. That being said, as mentioned earlier, we may not get into detail like how we got into Vedās. For example, we had the opportunity to discuss Sukta Bhagam, Purusha Suktam, Shri Suktam, Bhu Suktam, Nila Suktam, Durga Suktam. Whereas this subject, appreciation of Indian classical music and dance, I will just deal it with the subject, with the content in brief. Coming to the origin of Indian classical music, though it may have come into the system in a very organized fashion in the last 2000 years, the origin of music lies in the Vedam. The Vedas that we have been talking about gives the origin to music. As discussed in the prologue to the Vedas, most of the mantras in the Rig Veda, which are in the form of riks, when introduced to a certain musical form as found in the Sama Vedam, becomes a Sama mantra, a Saman. So Rig Vedam and Sama Vedam are like sisters, one that is just being the Padyam and the other one which is Gana Rupam to the Padyam. So it is said that when the Jivatma, which is housed in this Pancha Bhautika Shariram, exits the body and then adopts a Sukshma Shariram, it will reach Paramapadam and will sing Samaganam. Samagayan naste ha vuha vuha. This is how we say we will be singing in Sri Vaikuntham. So Samaganam, which is Gana Shastram, is just not in this Leela Vibhuti, it is in the Nitya Vibhuti as well. I did mention that Rigvedam, the Riks in the Rigvedam, when being sung becomes Saman, there is a reference to it in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Yesha u yesha Sama, Vagvaisa Amaishaha, Sa Chamascheti Tat Samnaha Samatvam, Yadvesha Samaf Plushina, Samo Mashakena, Samo Nagena, Sama Yebhis Tribhir Lokaihi, Samo Anena Sarvena Tasmad Vesha Sama. Ashnute samnaha sayujyam salokatam sa evametat samaveda. So this is how Samaveda comes into picture. Says Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and says that Sa stands for that Rik from the Rigvedam, the Vedic mantra, and that Ama means the various notes that are associated with Sa. So it becomes Sama. Now, the sound that is deployed in the Samavedam goes like this, says one of the commentators. Ho yi, hoi, hova, hai, how, oya, ah, ya, ho, uha, tayo. So these are the sounds that are added to the existing letters to create that Samaganam. So Samavedam is derived. Now, coming to the way Udgata works in a yagam. Udgatra is a person who sings the Sama Vedam, generally the singing portion of the Vedam. So how is it derived? Says one particular commentary. Athaha manaha uchuhu tvam na udgayeti tatheti tebhyo mana udgayat yo manasi bhogastam devebhya agayata yat kalyanam sankalpayati tadatmane te viduranena vai na udgatran yeshyantiti tam ubdhyutla papmana vindhyan sa yaha sa papma yadeva veda pratirupam sankalpayati sa eva sa papma evamu khalveta devataha papamabhirupa srijan evamenaha papmana vindhyan. So this is how the mantra states. Now coming to the Samaveda Samhita, there are a few kriyas that are associated while performing a yagam. There are 5 essential elements to it. When I say elements, they are the people who will be singing the particular mantra when performed through Samaveda. So the initial portion of the mantra is commenced with the hunkara. So the personality who does that is called prastotr. So that prastavam, that portion, that introduction portion is done by the prastotr. Then there is an udgatr who does the omkara. So it begins with humkara and then continues with omkara, which is done by udgatr. Then pratiharta, he sings the portion that is propitiating a certain devata. So he is the pratiharta. The same mantra, by the time he completes the last syllable, at the same time, the first syllable of the mantra he recited will be continued by another person. And this udgatra is called as doing upadravam. Upadrava in the colloquial language in the south of India means somebody who disturbs. No. Upadrava means the one who begins the syllable of the mantra while the last syllable of the main mantra is recited by the pratihatra. So after the pratiharta recites, that the moment he is about to complete, upadrava begins. And then the final portion, be it the prastotra, udgatra, and then pratiharta, all 3 of them recite the entire portion together again. So that is nidhana. So you have got these 5 portions. While Samaganam is being done, you keeping Samavedam as the basis during a yagam. So all this explanation about Vedam, the portions of Vedam where singing is deployed, is to mention that ancient classical music and its roots is not alien to us. It began in the Vedic era itself. Nevertheless, the octave or that scale which we deploy, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa, the scale that we deploy comes from Samavedam, because generally in Vedam we have those particular syllables which are sounded in the middle, those that are shifted high and those that go down and those that have to be extended. This was explained in the Vedic portion itself. We have Udattam, Anuddatam, Swaritam, Dirghaswaritam, Prachaya and so on. So this gives rise to the first swaram, which is Shadjam. Sa. So this Shadjam, Shat means 6. Jakaram denotes birth. That swaram which gives rise to the set of next 6 swarams is called Shadjam, because after Shadjam, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni. So you have got 6 more swaras. To complete that particular cycle, to make it cyclic, you put the Shadjam there, which is the upper Sa. Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Pa, Da, Ni, Sa. That Sa stands there. Now, these particular swaras that have come into our picture have a certain shloka that denotes how these swaras came into picture. I will just read out this particular shlokam. Shadjam vadati mayuro. So, in those days, research scholars who went deep into music, internalized music, and worshipped Paramatma through music, Nadopasana, mention that when you hear the sound of a peacock, it sounds like the Shadjam. Shadjam vadati mayuro. Gavo rambhati cha rishabham. So it could be Gavo. When they talk about Gavo, it could be the cow or the bull. So that has to do with Rishabham. Rishabha in itself means the bull. Ajaviketu Gandharam. So the Gandhara Shruti or the Gandharam Swaram sounds very much like the sound that is given by a goat, sheep. Krauncho vadati madhyamam. There is a bird called Krauncha Pakshi. Yat Krauncha mitunad ekam avadhi kamamohitam, says Valmiki. Krauncha Pakshi is often referred to as the bird heron, or some scholars say it could also be Hamsa Pakshi. Whether it is Krauncha or Hamsa, that sound of the bird is Madhyamam. Pushpasadharane male kokilo vakti panchamam. Kokilam, cuckoo bird. Vande Valmiki kokilam. We compare Valmiki to the bird cuckoo. So the sound, the chirping of the cuckoo is Panchamaswaram. Ashvastu Dhaivatam Vakti. Ashvastam. So the neighing of the horse, the sound that emanates from the neighing of the horse is similar to the Dhaivatam. Nishadam Vakti Kunjaraha. So when they talk about Nishadam, it deals with the sound that comes from the elephant. So these swaras, Shadjam, Rishabham, Gandharam, Madhyamam, Panchamam, Dhaivatam and Nishadam, the Sapta Swaras become the very base for any style of Indian classical music. But remember, from Samavedam, from Rigvedam to Samavedam, Samavedam to the Samaganam, Samaganam to the Panchapurushas who assist in the Yajna, to the Udattam, Anuddatam, Swaritam, Dirghaswaritam and Prachayam has transitioned into the refined Saptaswaras. So from the Kantha, from the Nabhi to the Kantha and Kantha to the tongue, either the Pranava Mantram, Omkaram or Gayatri Mantram, and later the Swaras come so effortlessly, says Tyagaraja. Nabhi Hridkantarasana, Nabhi Hridkantarasana Nasa Duyandu, Nabhi Hridkantarasana Nasa Duyandu, Shobhillu Saptaswara Shobhillu Saptaswara Shobhillu Saptaswara. Saint Tyagaraja, one of the most prominent composers and musicians of Bharata Desham, mentions how the Saptaswaras are closely related to our body system, and having mentioned the origin of the Saptaswaras, we also need to see if music along with the Shruti, the Ragam and the Talam, the beat, Sari Gama Pada Nisa Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Ga Ri Sa Sari Gama Pada Nisa. See, if you see, every beat will be associated with a swaram. Sa Ri Ga Ma Pa Da Ni Sa. Now I can keep two swaras in one beat. Sa Ri Ga Ma Pa Da Ni Sa Sa Ni Da Pa Ma Ga Ri Sa. I kept two swaras in one beat. I can keep now even a few more swaras. Sari ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. Sari ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. 4 swaras in the same beat. So this talam, Shruti Mata Layaf Pita, say our Purvacharyas. As much as the Shruti is important, the rhythm is also equally important. Because this rhythm is what that forms the basis for any Natya Shastra. So, as I mentioned earlier, music and dance go well hand in hand. Yajnavalkya and Yajnavalkya Smriti says, Moksha Margam Niyachati Vinavadan Tattvajnaha Shrutijati Visharadaha. So, for attaining moksham, to attain Paramapadam, Swarajnanam, Ragajnanam, Talajnanam, Sahitya and then Bhakti, when coupled together and sung within, gives rise to a certain sound called Nadam. Remember, I said certain sound because in general people say Nadam is sound. No, sound is a very, very basic phenomenon. Nadam is when there is a connect that happens between the chit, the consciousness, and the swaram that you sing. So that is Nadam. But English being the very language that I am using and you are all listening to, I cannot cast bad names to this language. We are after all respecting the language and using it, but English has a limited vocabulary. So, and there are certain words which cannot be exactly translated. So, Nadam is a certain kind of a sound. That certain you can experience only when you listen to more and more of classical bhakti music. So, here Yajnavalkya Smriti says, Talajnyas chaparasya prayasena mokshamargyam niyachati. So, even with the complete knowledge, with a flawless knowledge of Talajnanam coupled with Shruti and Layajnanam with the Sahitya Jnanam with Bhakti Bhavam ensures moksham, says Yajnavalkya. So, the concept of music elevating the Jivatma to moksham, to salvation, that's what the Westerners call for moksham, is found largely in Sanatana Dharma only, because there are certain world religious systems which even call music and dance as crime. But in Sanatana Dharma, music can actually take a person to moksham. It is called Nadopasana. Upasana is Bhakti Margam. Through Nadam leads to moksham. Well, now I mentioned about the Saptaswaras. Shadjam, there may be students in this course who are all experts at music. You might have learnt under the tutelage of some of the best gurus. You will know much. All the portions that I am covering in this basics of music is very, very basic to you. But there may be students who may not have had the opportunity to understand the basics of music or dance. So for them, this brief introduction will help them to explore more. So this, I spoke about the Saptaswaras, Shadjam, Rishabham, Gandharam. Now Shadjam stays as is. It can come in various octaves. Sa, this is the Sa which is in the lowest octave. You can take it to the highest octave as well. But there are certain swaras which have certain variations. For example, Rishabham is denoted by 2 Rishabhams, which is Rishabham 1, Rishabham 2. And that becomes Shuddha Rishabham and Chatushruti Rishabham. Now, there is a Shatshruti Rishabham as well, which is generally not used, so I am keeping it away. Now, Gandharam has Sadharana Gandharam and Antara Gandharam, and we have a Shuddha Gandharam, which is again rarely used. Madhyamam has Shuddha Madhyamam and Prati Madhyamam. Madhyamam is very important because it is the middle of the Saptaswaras. Shadjam, Rishabham, Gandharam. Keep Madhyamam in the middle. Then you have got Panchamam, Dhaivatam and Nishadam. So, 3 swaras on either side. Madhyamam becomes the Madhyama Bhagam. So, there is Ma 1 and Ma 2. Similarly, there is one Panchamam. And after Panchamam, we have Shuddha Daivatam and Chatushruti Daivatam. Likewise, we have Ni 1 and Ni 2. While keeping all these Shrutis together, Swarams together, our Purvacharyas have come up with a system called as Melakarta Ragam scheme. This is largely propagated and researched upon in the South Indian classical music system, which is Karnataka Sangeetam. Karnataka Sangeetam, or in anglicized form Carnatic music, has very little to do with the word Karnataka, the state. Of course, the state Karnataka has produced immense scholars and musicologists who have contributed to this system of music. But the word Karnataka means which is very eternal or ancient. So Karnataka Sangeetam, or Carnatic music as it is called, has its basis. I am not discussing much of Hindustani system because my knowledge in Hindustani system is very, very low. But one thing is for sure, the basics of music remain the same in both systems. The style of singing, the style of deploying a raga, the way an raga is internalized could have variation, and the compositions that are deployed. Karnataka Sangeetam is largely Sahityam driven. Of course, Swaram, Talam, everything is found in both systems. It is largely Sahityam driven. Hindustani music is also Sahityam driven, but not as much as what Karnataka Sangeetam is. So I am using this chart of Melakarta Ragam scheme to explain ragas. So we have different raga schemes. We say this music, this song is in this raga, that song is in that raga. So how does this raga come into picture? So there is a lakshanam for every raga. Based on that lakshanam, what emotion it gives rise to, and using the basic, the foundation swaras that are used in its scale going up and going down, arohanam and avarohanam, we give a lakshanam to the entire raga. And once that raga is understood, I would not say in entirety because each raga is an ocean in itself, to a large extent its lakshanam is understood, then a composition is given in that raga. Mahaganapatim manasa smarami, Mahaganapatim manasa smarami, Mahaganapatim. This is a ragam called Nata or Natai. Now I will take you to another ragam which is Gambhira Natai. Shri Janavidharam Shankaram Shri Vidya Swarupam Shashidharam Shrivasam Sharvam Shiva Ramanam. This is Gambhira Natai. So there will be variations within one scale, or there could be completely different scales itself. So how do we understand this raga scheme? So there are certain ragas which are Janaka ragas, which are the father or mother ragas. They give rise to certain ragas which are their subsets. So those children ragas are called Janya ragas. So while creating a chart for our understanding, our Purvacharyas have said that a raga can be classified as a Melakarta raga if it deploys all the necessary swarams, which is the Saptaswaram. So the Saptaswaras should be there in the Melakarta ragam. That is one important condition. But how did they distribute the chart? It is a very, very interesting way of understanding Melakarta ragam scheme. So there are 72 Melakartas. So if you divide them into two parts, you will get 36 ragas on one side, 36 on the other. If I have to distribute the 72 ragas into, say, a circle, I can have 4 parts, correct? The circle can have 4 quadrants. But here, similar to the number of months we have, there are 12 parts. So these 12 parts become the chakrams. Let us now understand how they have divided. So there are 12, right? So the first chakram will be Indu chakram. Indu chakram denotes the moon. Indu means moon. So how many moons are there? Natural satellites that the earth has only one, which is the moon. So it is 1, the first chakra. Second one is Netra. How many eyes do we have? 2. So the second chakra is Netra, which means 2. Third is Agni. So we talk about Agnihotram. So there are 3 types of fires which are invoked by the Vedic scholar in 3 different times of the day. Dakshinagni, Ahavaniyam and Garhapatyam. So a person who performs these 3 fires every day without any break is called an Agnihotri. So there are 3 Agnis. 4. The 4th chakra is Vedam, because there are 4. Rig, Yajuhu, Sama, Atharvanam. Then 5th is Bana. So Kama or Manmatha has a Banam which has got 5 constituents in it: the lotus flower, the mango flower, the jasmine flower, the ashoka flower and the lily flower. So there are 5. But there is one line, Tyagaraja says, Panchabanari prema priya sakhi, Panchabanari prema priya sakhi, Panchabanari, Panchabanari. So while denoting Lord Shiva, who is the enemy to Manmatha, who carries 5 pushpams in his banam, Tyagaraja says Panchabanari. Then 6, Ritu. Ritu Samharam of Kalidasa has 6 Ritus: Vasanta Ritu, Grishma Ritu, Varsha Ritu, Sharad Ritu, Shishira Ritu and Hemanta Ritu. 6. 7th chakra is Rishi, Sapta Rishis. And then 8th is Vasu. So Ashtavasu. Then 9th is Brahma, the one who has created the Prajapatis, Atri, Angirasa, Bhrughu, Daksha, Kashyapa, Pulaha, Marichi, Vasishtha, Pulastya. Then we have got 10, which is Dishi. You have got north, south, east, west, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest. Z-axis upside, minus EZ, which goes down. So you have got 10, Dasha. Then 11th is Rudra, Ekadasha Rudra. And 12 is Aditya, Dwadasha Aditya. So here we have these chakrams that come into picture. So now let's divide the circle into 12 branches. So we have got Indu Chakram, Netra Chakram, Agni Chakram, Veda Chakram, Bana Chakram, Ritu Chakram, Rishi Chakram, Vasu Chakram, Prajapati, that is Brahma Chakram. Then we have got Dishi Chakram, Rudra Chakram and Aditya Chakram. So you have got 12 parts. Now, how do I divide the ragas? 36 ragas on one side, 36 on the other. What is the basis for this division? These set of 36 Melakarta ragas will deploy the Ma1 Madhyamam, whereas the second set of 36 ragas will deploy Ma2 Madhyamam. So, an often cited example by most scholars or musicologists is Ma1 and Ma2 for Dhira Shankarabharanam and Mecha Kalyani. Sarigama Padani Sa Sanidapama. This Ma is Ma1. Now when I take you to the second Ma, Pratimadhyamam, Sariga Ma Padani Sa. How was the previous Ma? Sariga Ma. Second Ma, Sariga Ma. So Sariga remains the same. Ma alone changes. So how do I complete that Arohanam? Sariga Ma Padani Sa. The second, Sariga Ma Padani Sa. Padani Sa. Sariga remains the same. Ma1 and Ma2 alone changes. So when I deploy Sarigama, this is the ragam Dhira Shankarabharanam. Sarigama, this is Mecha Kalyani. Now how do I know the number of that particular Melakarta? Now let us take Dhira Shankarabharanam. What are the first 2 letters? Dhira. So what is Dhi? Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga, cha, cha, ja, ja, nya, ta, ta, da, da, na, ta, tha, da, dha, na. Correct. So this dha, how do we calculate in Katapayadi Sankhya? Ka, kha, ga, gha, nga. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cha, cha, ja, ja, nya. 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Again we have to begin with 1. At that point in time, the number associated with the letter dha is 9. Let us take ra. Ya, ra, la, va. Ra. Ra is 2. So what is dhira Shankarabharanam? Dhira becomes 9, 2. Generally, when you arrive at a solution from the numbers in Katapayadi Sankhya, you will have to reverse it. So 92 becomes 29. So the number associated in the Melakarta Raga Chakram for Dhira Shankarabharanam is 29. Let us take the corresponding raga in the Pratimadhyama Ragam scheme. So we have Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, 2. Right, that is Pratimadhyamam. Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, that is Mecha Kalyani. What is Mecha? Me. Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga. You go right. Pa, Pa, Ba, Bha, Ma. Ma is 5. Now, Cha. Ka, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nga, Cha. Cha is 6. So, Mecha Kalyani becomes 5, 6. But again, we have to reverse the number in Katapayadi Sankhya. So, 56 becomes 65. So, 65th Raga will be Mecha Kalyani. So, by knowing the Raga's name, Melakarta Raga, you can come to the number, thereby putting that in the Chakram. And you will also know, suppose if it is more than 36, the 37th number has to be a Pratimadhyama Raga. Before 36 ke pehle, that has to be a Shuddha Madhyama Raga. Now, how do we further go and understand this Melakarta Raga? So, the Shadjam is the same. Shadjam. Let us take the Hindu Chakram. It uses Ri 1, Ga 1, Ma 1, Sa, Ri, Ga, Ma, Pa. Panchamam anyways doesn't change. Shadjam and Panchamam will not change. So, Shadjam, Rishabham 1, Gandharam 1, Ma is Ma 1, Panchamam is the same, Da, Ni, Sa. So, there will be a change in the Da and Ni. For example, Sa, Ri 1, Ga 1, Da 1, Ni 1, Pa 1, Pa will come before, and then you come to Sa. That is the ragam called Kanakangi. Now let us take Sa, Ri 1, Ga 1, Da 1, Ni 2. Then you have got the Panchamam before, and then you got the Shadjam at the end. So that will give rise to Ratnangi. And there will be a corresponding raga where the Ma 1 becomes Ma 2, and that will give rise to the diametrically opposite ragam. So these Melakarta ragams, which are the Janaka ragas, 72 in number, in permutation and combination, it has to be very sounding very melodious as well. It will give rise to thousands and thousands of Janya ragas. But some of them are very beautiful to listen to. Some of them may be theoretically good, but as per melody, only musicologists and research scholars can suggest. While describing the Lord of Tirumala, Balaji or Srinivasa, Venkateshwara, one of the poets says that early in the morning, it seems all the ragas obtain a body, a rupam, and they all come and prostrate and give their obeisances to the Lord of Tirumala, it seems. So at that point in time, he mentions all the ragas, the Melakarta ragas. Let us listen to that once. Kanakangi Ratnangi Ganamurti Vanaspati Manavati Tanarupi Senavati Hanumatodi Dhenuka Nataka Priya Kokila Priya Rupavati Gayaka Priya Vakula Bharanam Maya Malava Gaula Chakravakam Suryakatam Hatakambari झंकार ध्वनि नट भैरवी कीरवाणी खरहर प्रिया गौरी मनोहरी वरुण प्रिया माररंजनी चारुकेशी हरिकाम्भोजि सरसांगी धीरशंकराभरणं नागानंदिनी यागप्रिया रागवर्धिनी गांगेय भूषणी वागदीश्वरी शूलिनी चलनाट सालगम जलार्णवम झालवराळी नवनीतं पावनी रघुप्रिया षड्विधमार्गिणी शुभपंतुवराळी गवांबोधि सुवर्णांगी दिव्यमणि भवप्रिया धवलांबरी नाम नारायणी कामवर्धिनी रामप्रिया गमनाश्रम विश्वांबरी श्यामलांगी षण्मुखप्रिया सिंहेन्द्र मध्यमं हेमवती धर्मवती नीतिमती कांतामणि ऋषभ प्रिया लतांगी वाचस्पति मे च कल्याणी चित्रांबरी सुचरित्र ज्योतिस्वरूपिणी धातुवर्धिनी कोसलम नासिका भूषणी रसिक प्रिया. So these are the list of ragas, Melakarta ragas. Now there could be Janya ragas that are associated, which are many hundreds and thousands in number. That being said, this has been documented by many Vagayakaras, composers, musicologists in the last 2000 years. So, as I have said, Natyam, dance and Sangeetam are very closely linked. Music's origin besides the Vedas is also found in the Natya Shastram of Bharata Muni, Naradi Siksha of Narada, Kohala Sangeeta Meru, Dattila Muni's Dattilam, Matanga Maharishis Brihaddeshi, Narada Maharishis Naradiyam, Parshvadeva Sangeeta Samaya Saram, Narada Sangeeta Makarandam, Umapati's Aumapatam, then Prataparaja's Sangeeta Chudamani, there is Sangeeta Ratnakara, Sangeeta Sudhakara, Sangeeta Sara, Raga Tarangini, Sangeeta Raja, Sangeeta Chintamani, Sangeeta Suryodaya, Swaramela Kalanidhi, Raga Vibodha, Sangeeta Sudha, Sangeeta Darpana, Chaturdandi Prakashika, Sangeeta Parijata, Sangeeta Narayana, Raga Manjari, Nartana Nirnaya, Hridaya Kautuka, Hridaya Prakasha, Anupa Sangeeta Vilasa, Anupa Sangeeta Ratnakara, Anupa Sangeetan Kusha, Raga Tattva Vibodha, Sangeeta Saramrita, Meladhikara Lakshana, Sangraha Chudamani, Kundali Mani Darpanam, Swararnavam, Talarnavam, Vyasakatakam. There are hundreds and hundreds. I have just listed down a few for our understanding that how much has gone into the research of music. Each of the names that I have mentioned is a compendium, is an encyclopedia in itself. There will be slight variations in which they have understood music. Then there is this concept of gamakam in ancient Sangeeta, that is Karnataka Sangeeta system. For example, the western notes will be plain. Sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa. So, they will hit on the note, take a reverse and then hit on the next note. For example, let me take the Navaraga Malika Varnam. Da, ni, sa, re, ga, ma, da, pa, ma, ga, re. This is how Western music will profess or encourage its students to sing. So there is a clear note, swara, and then the next swara, da, ni, sa, re, ga. Whereas the Indian music will try to create a link between the two swaras. Da ni sa re ga ma da pa ma ga re ni re ni da ni sa re ga ma pa. Da ni sa re ga ma da pa ma ga re ni da ni sa re ga ma pa. This is Western. Da ni sa re ga ma da pa ma ga re ni da ni sa re ga ma pa da ma ga re sa. So you connect. So the movement of the sound from one swaram to the other will have a connection. Dani zari ga ma da va ma ga re ni ga re. So this concept of gamakam comes into picture. With respect to the Shrutis, how many Shrutis are there? Muthuswami Dikshitar, one of the very famous Vagekaras and composers in the South Indian, I would rather say Indian, but now that we have classified ourselves into North Indian Hindustani and South Indian Karnataka Sangeetam, I am using the word. Otherwise, music is universal. For our understanding in the Karnataka Sangeetam, which is Carnatic music, Muthuswami Dikshitar recognizes 22 Shrutis. He mentions that in his Kriti Vamshavati, in the Ragam Vamshavati, Dvavimshat Shruti Swara Swarupini, Vinodakara Guru Guha Swarupini. So he recognizes 22 Shrutis and he recognizes 10 Gamakas. So in the Kriti, Meenakshi Memudam, which is regarded as his last Kriti before the Atma from his Shariram could depart, on the presiding deity of Madurai, Meenakshi, Meenalochani, he sings Madhura Puri Nilaye Mani Valaye Malaya Dhwaja Pandya Raja Tanaye Vidhu Vidambana Vadane Vijaye Veenagana Dashagamaka Kriye Veenagana Dasha 10 Gamakas Kriye, the one who motivates or the one who has created. So he recognizes 10 different Gamakas. So we write from Rigvedam to Samavedam to the movement of Samaganam to the Saptaswaras to how it is associated with the nature, and then the further classification of the Swaras, and then coming to the Melakarta Ragam scheme and then the Gamaka. We have understood very, very minorly a wafer of classical Indian music. Now there have to be people who have immensely contributed to the system. So they are the composers. So they will have the Raga Lakshanam in mind, the Tala Jnanam in their mind, and they will induce Bhakti through Sahityam. Though it was not meant to be a compendium of Indian music, the byproduct of this Bhakti literature happens to be music. That is Jayadeva's Ashtapadi. Vagdevata Charita Chitrita Chitta Sadma Padmavati Charana Charana Chakravarti Shri Vasudeva Radikeli Katha Sametam Yetam Karoti Jayadeva Kavif Prabandham. Jayadeva Kavi, one of the venerated poets in the Bhakti Sahityam, is Jayadeva, who is said to have lived largely in Odisha, and his devotion to the Lord, the presiding deity of Puri Kshetram, Jagannatha Kshetram, Purushottama Kshetram, is well known. In his work called as Ashtapadi, he brings forth the Prema Bhakti, the rasa element of Shringara and Bhakti together. While discussing music and dance, we also need to understand the contribution made in terms of the Navarasas. Earlier, Natya Shastra mentions only of Ashtarasas, but later the 9th rasa was added, is what many scholars say, which is the Shantarasam. So be it Shringaram, which is the governing, the most supreme of all rasams in our literature, Shringara Rasam, the rasam for love, that sentiment. Then there is Karuna Rasam for mercy. Then there is Raudram for anger. There is Veeram to show valor. There is Bibhatsa to show disgust. Then there is Hasyam to show humor, and so on. So the Navarasas, 8 plus 1, 9, dominate our literature, and of them Shringara Rasam is very prominent. In Jayadeva's Ashtapadi or Gita Govindam, the way it is called, Shringara Rasam is very, very high. There is also Karuna Rasam in certain places when Radha suffers because of the Virahatapam. It's called Vipralamba Shringaram. When the Nayaka and the Nayika are together, it is Sambhoga or Samyoga Shringaram. When they are away from each other, when they think of each other and they lose weight and they keep crying, it's Vipralamba Shringaram or Virahatapam. There is this Ashtapadi that you all will know, where Jayadeva says, because of this separation, it felt to them, both to Krishna and Radha, that the cool nectarine rays of the moon was also scorching like that of the sun. And the very well smelling paste of sandalwood would also smell very obnoxious to them. Nindati chandanam indu kirana manu vindati khedamadiram nindati chandanam. Be it chandanam or indu kiranam, it smells and feels like that, is what Jayadeva says. So there are many Ashtapadis. I am just giving you some samples. So in this Ashtapadi, Lalita Lavanga Lata Parishilana. So Jayadeva describes that this season that they see around, be it the Vasanta Ritu, the sound of the kokila and the smell of the cloves and the sandalwood trees and the Malaya breeze that brings forth from the ghats of the south, induces love. Lalita lavangalata parishilana komala malaya samire radhe lalita lavanga lata parishilana madhukara nikara karambita kokila kujita kunja kutire viharati haririha sarasavasante. So this particular feeling, the more you understand Ashtapadi, you will get drowned in this Shringara Bhakti and Karuna Bhakti, Prema Bhakti Samrajyam. So now you will get to see how Ashtapadi of Jayadeva, the emotions deployed in this particular Ashtapadi is depicted by the renowned dancer Srimati Jayanti, and to a very, very brief extent understood how Ashtapadi dominated, be it in the field of Sanskritam, which is literature, or music, or even dance. We will move further south from West Bengal, Odisha region. We are going to move further south. So around the 10th century, when there was a big famine in the north of India, it is said that a lot of Brahmanas from the Kashi region, Varanasi region, walked further south and they reached the Kurnool district of Andhra Pradesh, and in Nandavaram they settled, and they were called Nandavarika Brahmana, and in that particular lineage came a great poet called Annamaya, and they all started speaking Telugu from them. Annamaya, from a very young age, was induced into bhakti. So it is said that his childhood would remind anybody of Krishna's childhood. Later he even sang a composition as to how the Lord atop the Tirumala hill, Tirupati, who's Balaji or Srinivasa or Venkateshwara, to his eyes seems to be like the little boy Krishna, who was unable to stand and walk but was only able to crawl. He was desirous of the fresh balls of butter that his mother would get upon churning. So he would get the fresh ball of butter, and because of the scorching heat, that butter would melt and it would flow along his elbow, and make the body and the floor so greasy that he will not be able to take the ball of butter close to his mouth, and in return to his rhythmic movement, a further rhythm will be added by the jingling bells that are attached to his mekhala, his kanchi, his girdle. So he puts forth this feeling. Kati ghatita mekala khachitamani kantika patala ninadena vibrajyamanam kutila pada ghatita samkula shinjite natam Chatula natana samujvala vilasam bhavayami. See, reading out the lines in music just like that and appending music to it is completely different. Bhavayami Gopala Balam is a certain feeling. Bhavayami Gopala Balam. The moment swaras go hand in hand with the sahityam, it touches your heart. That is the essence of Nadopasana. So we will now listen to this composition of Annamacharya or Annamaya, which was popularized by Bharat Ratna, cousins called Timmakka and Akkalamma. And while he was enjoying his married life, it is said that once on his pilgrimage tours to Ahobilam, the abode of Lord Sri Nrsimha in the state of Andhra Pradesh, he happened to meet a great Acharya regarded as the first pontiff of Sri Ahobilamat, a Vaishnava institution. The name of the Acharya was Adivan Shatakopa, and from him he got the ritual of Panchasamskaram, the Shankha Chakra Lanchanam, the placement of Shankhas and Chakras upon the heated silver candles onto the shoulders is called as Samashrayanam. He got that done. He was induced and brought into the fold of Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam. Later his life changed, where his bhakti grew many fold, and he drenched the Lord of Tirumala and various other kshetrams with his sahityam, largely in Sanskritam language and Sanskritized Telugu language. But the beauty is, though he lived about 600-650 years before, around the 14th-15th century, his compositions were not found largely until 100 years back, roughly 100 years back, while circumambulating, while doing a pradakshina around the Sanctum Sanctorum, the Garbhagraham of Lord Sri Srinivasa and Tirumala Tirupati. When you go, you will see a small gopuram that you can see in the picture, called as Annamaya Bhandaram, and it was not opened for centuries together. When it was opened, many copper plates and manuscripts that contained his compositions were taken, they were tuned and given to many prominent musicians. So Annamaya's compositions bring forth the devotion, the bhakti that he had largely towards the Lord of Tirumala, who is Venkateshwara. Then as we move from the region of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana to the region of Karnataka, we come across a couple called Varadappa Nayaka and Leelavati, who had a sojourn to Tirumala Tirupati again. They wanted the Lord's blessing in having a child, and eventually by the grace of the Lord they had a child, and he was called Cheenappa Nayaka. He was called Srinivasa Nayaka. Srinivasa is Cheena in the South Indian language, a very pet name, a colloquial name. So he was called Cheenappa Nayaka. He took up to the family business of being a pawnbroker. So people would pawn their jewelry, pawn various materials to get money for their personal needs. True to his profession, he was also an extremely notorious miser He wouldn't part with money that easily. He was not magnanimous at all. He was married to Lakshmi Amma. Some records say, some people say it is Saraswatamma, whichever name his wife was brought home. Though he lived a good life with her, he was not again very magnanimous with her. But his knowledge in the language and the Shastras was immense, just that he was not putting it to practice. To bring him into the fold of Bhakti, it is said that the Lord devised a plan wherein he would come in the form of an old man, give away his tambura that was made up of sandalwood. Later, he came in the form of a poor Brahmana who said that he wanted some money to perform the thread ceremony, Upanayanam, for his son. And this Chinapanayaka would not give money. Instead, this Brahmana goes at the doorstep of his house, spots Chinapanayaka's wife and requests her to help him. So she gives him the diamond studded nose ring. This man goes, the man is nobody but the Lord himself. He goes in the form of a soldier and pawns that nose ring in the store of Chinapanayaka. Chinapanayaka gives the required money, but he knows for very well that this nose ring must belong to his wife. But he wanted to know how his wife had parted away with the nose ring. So he goes to his house. The moment she spots him coming towards the house, she requests the god to save her. At that point in time, she spots the nose ring in the house and she puts it back onto her nose. Chinapanayaka, who's astonished to see the nose ring on her face, then checks the nose ring in his hand and that is missing. Then he goes back to the store and then finds a soldier who had pawned it, who had come back to receive his nose ring. So he's all confused what to give and what not to give. That is when this soldier and the Brahmana who had come seeking help laugh, and Chinapanayaka follows them into the woods, and these two gentlemen walk into the cave. And there inside the cave he sees an Acharya Varya who gives him mantropadesha, and from then on he uses the tambura which was once given by the Lord himself who had pawned it, and becomes, from a grihastha, he lives like a sannyasi, I'm not saying he became a sannyasi, he lives like a sannyasi, and all his compositions, sahityam, is dedicated to the Lord. So, in this journey of or transformation of him from being a miser to a great devotee, Purandaradasa, you will see the composition. Largely these compositions were tuned, some of them were tuned by Purandaradasa himself and later by various other musicologists and popularized by various musicians. Late Srimati M.L. Vasantakumari did a yeoman's service in bringing forth the essence and bhakti laden compositions of Purandaradasa. So you will now listen to a composition that you must have all heard. I have grown up listening to the Devarnamas of many dasas, especially Purandaradasa. This one is a famous one called Harismarane Mado. In the Kannada language, he says, Harismarane Mado Nirantara. Always, O you human being, keep thinking of Hari. Harismarane Mado Nirantara. Paragati ke idu nirdhara. For one to obtain paragati or moksham, idu nirdhara. This is the only way. This is the clear way. So let us listen to that composition.
Srisha
Now that you have listened to this composition, Purandaradasa attained moksham at the age of 80 years in 1564 in Vijayanagara, which is today Hampi.